The kids love them. I shared them with some other people as well, and it was really a treat. So thank you, Yudi, for that. The Lubavitcher Rebbe always taught us that when we cook and we're about to have a delicious food, we should always think about another person, another human being out there that may be hungry. And therefore, we should take a coin or a dollar and put it into a pushka, into a charity box to feed the poor. And this became a beautiful tradition throughout many, many Jewish homes, Hasidic, non-Hasidic, Jewish, and actually non-Jewish homes today, that before they bake and cook, they take a pushka, a charity box, and they put money into it for the poor, for the hungry. So I'm going to take a moment. I don't have a pushka. I'm traveling. I'm actually in Connecticut right now. And I'm going to use this cup because it's not about the design. It's about the idea that you make a little cup or something of sorts into a charity box to give the poor and the hungry before we begin baking. I would like to share with you a quote that I read that I believe really connects to today for our presentation. It's from Harry Truman in 1947. He said as follows: America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on Rugelach, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. I may have messed up that quote a little bit, but I think it talks volumes about what America stands for. Jews in America, in Israel, love the Rugelach, the chocolate, the cinnamon Rugelach. This is part of our culture. But where did it all begin? It all began from the Polish Jews that baked the Rugelach. Why did they call it the Rugelach? So Rugelach is a Yiddish term, German term, which actually means twists. Like an unpredictable story that has twists and turns on every level of the story to make it fascinating. That is what a Rugelach is. It's the story of our lives. The Jewish people always have twists and turns in their lives. There's always a challenge. Today we're in COVID and there's challenges. There's a lot of twists and turns. We don't know today what's going to be tomorrow. We don't even know if we're going to have a regular high holiday service. What we thought was so predictable is unpredictable. And the story of the Jewish people today more than ever resonates with what the Rugelach stands for. I don't believe, after looking through many pages of the Talmud, that the Rugelach is found in the Talmud. But I do believe that many Jews have studied Talmud and maybe finished and completed the Talmud through and while eating Rugelach and their coffees. You know, the babka is similar to a Rugelach. It's a large Rugelach, so to speak. You know what the babka is, right? How could you not know what a babka is, right? So just like in American culture, you have the burger and you have the sliders. You have the hot dog and you have the Franks and Blanks. You have the cake and you have the cupcake. You have the donut and you have the munchies. So you have the babka and you have the Rugelach. Without further ado, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce to you Chef Yudi Weinbaum from Oahu Kosher. If you ever make it out there to Hawaii, that is the only and best place you can find delicious kosher foods. A little secret, Chef Yudi is going to be doing a tour of the United States, and maybe we'll get him down to Florida to do some presentations for us live eventually after COVID. Please give your undivided attention to Chef Yudi.
Thank you, Rabbi Zalman. Welcome to Chabad. And as we see that the rabbi can be in Connecticut and still be the Chabad of Palm Beach, the rabbi of Chabad of Palm Beach. Rabbi Zalman, you just stole everything I had to say about Rugelach. So we're going to get right to it and bake some Rugelach. First, as you said, the first thing we do is put $1 in the pushka. And Rabbi's already explained why. So we'll get to it now. We'll put on our gloves. And we are going to make Rugelach. Now, when I sent out the recipe page and the instructions, so I got an email from Rabbi Zalman last night saying, hey, where does the sourdough and the cream cheese? When we're making rugelach. So for those who are a little confused, that is part of the dough, and we're going to show you exactly how to do it. Unlike a lot of those who were on our bagels, many of you were, and then our knish show, the dough for the rugelach we're going to make in a food processor, and I'm going to show you why. If you do not have a food processor with the dough blade, it's not the heavy blade, it's specifically for dough. You can use a regular mixer, and if you're going to do it by hand, then what you want to have is one of these, a butter cutter. Okay, so for the start, we're going to make the dough. It's going to have 2 cups of flour, and then we're going to add in. We're making a parav rugelach today. We're making parav rugelach. The reason is because most of first of all, our kitchen is a meat kitchen, so we can only make meat or parav stuff in it. But second of all is most of our desserts get eaten at the end of a meat meal. So you want to make sure your rugelach are meat. However, a disclaimer over here. I would highly suggest if you have a dairy kitchen and you're able to make milk rugelach and you're not going to eat them with any meat, you're going to come up with a better product, because butter is better than margarine. And we also have sour cream, which is dairy. We have it parav, which is better than, which would be better in a dairy. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our flour, 2 cups of flour to the mixer. In order to make a good dough, and if you ever worked with pastry before, you want your margarine, in our case, or butter, to be very cold. And by this, we're going to cut it into pieces, which I've already done, and then chill it back in the fridge. This way, when we pulse it through the machine, it's going to become like a dirty sand, and this will create, as we go through the layers of making the rugelach dough, it's just going to create multiple layers that are going to create a flaky dough when we make our rugelach. Okay, so I've got my flour here. I'm going to grab my margarine fridge. Okay, so as I said, I've already cut my margarine into little squares over here, and I'm going to add those all to the machine. Put our little squares in. You want to try not as little contact with your hands, which are natural heat. You want to try to avoid that as best as possible. And one more thing. Just going to go in part 2, is I've done the same thing with our cream cheese here, cut it into little squares, and then put it back in the fridge. So start just the 2 ingredients. If we can go to camera 2 for a moment so you can see what this looks like inside. Okay, so you're looking inside the machine. No, Zalman, it needs to be on camera 2. It's still on camera 1. There we go. So we see inside the machine, we've got our pieces of margarine with our flour. Now we're going to put the top on, and for about 30 seconds, we will let that run. You want to make sure everything got incorporated over here. Let's bring it down from the sides. And we have what looks like a dirty sand, a wet sand. And that's exactly what we want to have over here. We are now going to transfer this to our bowl. If anyone has any questions that pertain to making the dough, you can message them to Rabbi Zalman and he will ask them live as we are making the dough. So we've got our, call it our dirty sand over here. Now we are going to add an eighth cup of sour cream. And our cream cheese. Now, I was not able to get unsalted margarine in Hawaii, so I'm not going to add salt. For the recipe, hopefully you can get power of unsalted margarine, so then you add the half a tablespoon of salt. But because I can't, my margarine already has salt in it, so I'm not going to add in. Now what I'm going to do is I really just want to be really careful. Just bring this all together. And even if you're left with like pea-sized pieces or streams of cream cheese, that's exactly what you want. Again, the heat of your hands is, you want to, as quickly as possible. Pick the camera up. I need this one. Okay, and then just bring it together as one piece. It's quite sticky, so I highly recommend wearing gloves to do this. And do not add more flour because it's sticky. This is a sticky dough, and that's how it is. At the end, when we're going to roll it out, we're going to add flour to the surface and make sure that we have ample amounts of flour. Even my daughter agrees with me over here. Okay, so we have our dough finished. Now, we're going to take a big piece of foil over here. You get your gloves on. We're going to take a big piece of foil, and we're going to take the ball, take the dough, make it into a ball, and flatten it out into a disc. The reason why we're doing this in foil is because the foil will absorb some of the moisture of the dough. So we have our dough, making it into a disc over here. As you can see throughout the dough, you'll still see some of the cream cheese, and that is perfect. That's exactly what you want. And you flatten this out into a dough, into a disc. Now fold your foil in, again, throw the foils in. You want it to be nice and tight, no air able to get in. And we are ready to go. We have our Rugelach dough is made. Flatten it down a bit, and we are ready to go to the fridge with our Rugelach dough. Okay, we can go back to camera one now. Can I get a bunch more gloves, please? Okay, so you need to put your dough in the fridge now for a minimum of 1 hour. It could be even overnight, and I would recommend the longer it's going to sit in the fridge, the more flaky, the colder it's going to be when you roll it out. A minimum, very minimum, is 1 hour. So if you've made the dough, put it away. You'll watch us make the rest of the Rugelach, and then you will be able to you will be able to make the rugelach and finish them in 1 hour from now. Okay, so we've made the dough a little earlier. I know it's nice and early in Hawaii still. But we were up nice and early making doughs over here. Okay, we've got our dough. Now, you want to make sure you have a counter that is liberally floured, a nice amount of flour, really, because as we said earlier, this is quite a sticky dough, and this is where we are going to make sure it doesn't stick. You can never overflour, in this case, overflour your counter. Take your dough in our beautiful foil over here. As you can see, if it was in plastic wrap, it would probably stick to the dough, and now it's coming out beautifully from the wrap over here. So we've got our disc of dough. Again, now we're going to flour on top. We're creating levels and pockets by doing this. We're going to make a ball again. We're going to make this into a ball. And you want to do this as quickly as you can. So once again, not over warming the dough. Now, once we've got it into a ball, we're going to set it down and start to push it. What you'll notice on the sides is it cracking. Don't worry about that. That is regular. What you want to continue to do is to move it around like that. Again, make sure that your center area, this is very helpful tool. It's called a bench scraper. And now we can put out our flour again. You can make sure it's on both sides. Keep on moving your dough around, pushing it down. And once you get to about the thickness that we were at when we had it before, so now we're going to roll out the dough, and you want it to get it to 3/4 of an inch. And you want it to be in a circle. You want your dough to be in a circle. Okay, when you're rolling it out, make sure at all times that you have flour underneath your dough. Otherwise, you can end up rolling and then your dough ends up, you got to cut it and roll it up afterwards with all the twists and turns. So you got to make sure that you're able to get your dough off the counter. Very important. Okay. So creating a circle over here. Beautiful. Okay, and as you go around, just keep on pushing in the edges so you have some nice form over here of the circle that we have. Okay, flakes a little bit, that is perfect. That's exactly what you're looking for. Again, I'm just going to give this one more roll this way, and then that. And we are going to make, out of our recipe today, we're going to make 16 rugelach. 16 rugelach. Okay, beautiful. We have our disc over here. If you want to check if your thing is good, you can just fold it in half, and if you see that all the sides match up, and if you've got a full circle, you are ready for the next part. Okay, now, there's a lot of people who are going to do this, and if you were going to do this in a bakery per se, they would actually measure exactly their cuts. So they're going to measure from this way to that way, and then this way, and they will score everything off. We're going to more eyeball it. So we're not going to start measuring. That would take quite a while. So we're going to eyeball it. And if you have a non-dairy pizza cutter, that would be the best thing to use over here. but you can easily use a knife. Before we get to cutting of the dough, let's just make sure everything's coming away from the counter nicely. Beautiful. It's coming away nicely. Okay. So now we're going to use our margarine to, this is 1.5 tablespoons. And we will margarine up because we're going to put down all the toppings inside. So make sure they stick nicely. We're going to margarine up. Just don't go all the way to the edges. You want to keep it about 1/2 inch away from the edges. We're going to nicely margarine our dough over here. Beautiful. The reason why we're keeping it away from the edges is because when we're going to roll, we're going to pick up right from the edge. And if there's stuff all over, it's difficult to roll. Okay, so we have our dough nicely margarined. Our next thing is, this is chocolate, but there's a little, because to enhance the flavors of the chocolate, it has cinnamon in it, not to be confused with cinnamon rugelach. This is cinnamon sugar. So we have 1/3 cup of sugar and 1/2 tablespoon of cinnamon. 1/2 teaspoon, sorry, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. If you really like your cinnamon, you could put a little bit more, but I would recommend sticking to the recipe. Okay, so put your cinnamon sugar down and spread it nicely and evenly over the butter or the margarine. Just pour the whole thing on and then just do like this. Bring it all over so you're fully covered. And finally, as we're making chocolate rugelach, so I've taken chocolate over here and I have chopped my chocolate up. See if you can see that in the camera. And now we're going to pour the chocolate all out over here. And you want it to be somewhat, have some chunks in it. As you can see, mine has got some chunks in it. I've used a little bit, mainly a bar of the chocolate, a bit of sweet, but I've also used a little bit of chocolate chips. Thank you. There's a great brand of chocolate chips that are Parv. Trader Joe's used to do it, but they stopped. So the brand that we use is this company. It's called Californian Gourmet, and I highly, highly recommend it. The power of chocolate chips, it doesn't get better than that. Okay, so now that we've got our surface fully chocolate, now we are ready to cut. So as I said, we're going to make 16 rugelach. So the first thing you want to do is try to eyeball it as best as possible. You can measure. If you're a person for measuring, go ahead, measure. You'll make sure all your rugelach are exactly the same. I'm going to eyeball it and to just see over here and to cut right down the middle over here. Okay, and then we have in the center again. Now, again, I'm going to do this 2 more times. So we get a 16 pie cut. Now, I find it easier, instead of going all the way across now, just to take each of your pieces and cut them right down the middle. And that's how you'll end up. We are 8 right now, so if we cut all our pieces in the middle, then we will have 16. we are there. Okay, so we've cut all our pieces. Now the moment of truth. Make as tight as you can. You want to roll your rugelach nice and tight. There we go. We have our beautiful rugelach. I'll give you a, so maybe we could go to camera 2 again just for a moment to watch the rolling. Okay. Camera 2. Zalman. Can we get camera 2 on? Okay, so just finish rolling that one, and now you'll be able to see. So pick it up. It's a nice tender dough, so you want to be careful with it as easily and quickly as you can. The dough is cold, so it's better to work with a cold dough, or the only way to work with this is with a cold dough. And I'm going to roll them again nice and tight. And we are ending up with beautiful rugelach over there. Okay, there we have. You want to take this little flat part, and that's what you're going to put down on the tray so that it will bake inside. As you can see, I just want to show you the flakiness of the dough. That's exactly what you're looking for. That's where you end up with a beautiful flaky rugelach. Set your oven, meanwhile, to 350 degrees and put it on. You're going to bake it on the top rack of your oven, and you will end up with beautiful rugelach. The last thing to do after we have rolled all our rugelach up is we're going to egg wash our rugelach, and this way they will end up with a nice, beautiful golden shine. So as we conclude over here, we've only got about 6 to go. Okay, almost there. Then if you have something called raw sugar, you can just top, well, after you egg wash, you can top your rugelach with that. Okay, so we'll place all our rugelach on our sheet tray. Okay, we can go back to camera 1. Okay. We're back on camera 1. Zalman, you're there. Okay, we are going to place all our rugelach now on our sheet pan. Again, making sure that the small part is on the bottom, and that's what keeps them closed. And you want to give them enough room so that they can bake without going into each other. The baking process is 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. You'll know your own oven. And then you just want to turn the sheet pan halfway through. So if you're doing it for 15 minutes, about 7.5, 8 minutes, you will move your sheet pan in the oven, turn it around, and then you'll continue the baking process. Try not to keep your oven open too long. What most people don't realize is they want to check on their pastry or whatever it is that's in the oven. And then what happens is, meanwhile, they're letting out half the heat of the oven. And then if you have new age ovens, they reset themselves. And what that does is it actually puts on the broiler at the top of the oven, which then your food gets burned. And if it isn't a new age oven, that doesn't reset itself. So you've just let out half the temperature of the oven, and then you wonder why your food is not baking the way it should. So we have our rugelach over here. Our last thing to do is to egg wash. We're just going to add another egg and check the egg over here. Let's give that a good mix. And we are ready to go. Here we go. Start just by beautiful. All the parts of your Rugelach. Just be nice and easy. And you want to do this, if possible. Your kitchen should not be overly hot. It's very difficult to work with a colder pastry in a very hot room. So try, if your kitchen is hot, try to turn on a fan or something to cool it down. And again, at the beginning, it's very, very important to make this flaky dough that your margarine, your cream cheese, those are all cut up into the little pieces, and to follow all the instructions that I did. And this way you will see a beautiful outcome of a rugelach. I'm not going to egg wash all of them right now, but that was just to show you how to do it. We'll finish that once we're off camera. I'm sure you want to see what the rugelach looks like. So we've already made a batch over here, and here is our rugelach. As you can see, we'll show you some very close up. You can see the flakiness of the dough. Let's cut one open for you. You can see the rugelach all the way through the dough, and we'll make a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei v'nei v'zenes. And that is a delicious rugelach. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to Rabbi and Chabad of Palm Beach for hosting us today. If anyone has any questions, now is your time. Back to you, Rabbi Zalman.
I'm going to launch, let me try if this works, a poll to survey what flavor people like better, chocolate or cinnamon. Let's try this and see if it works. Let me try this.
I know I'm very much a chocolate man. Let me see if I can.
Did it come up on your screen?
It came up on mine, yeah. Yep. Trying to push it. Okay. Zalman, you made me a host, so it doesn't let me vote.
Oh, okay.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? I guess it was as easy as that.
Would anyone like to share a question? Anyone have a question about what type of flavors you can make with Rugelach?
Would cinnamon and raisins work?
Absolutely. So cinnamon is going to be the predominant flavor. Instead of what we did with the cinnamon sugar, you would do equal parts of sugar and cinnamon, and this is how you're going to end up with your cinnamon. And then you could take your raisins and then just sprinkle them on top, push them down lightly into the dough, and then just cut away, and you'll have your cinnamon raisin rugelach.
What about apricot jam?
Apricot jam, it's exactly the same thing. You just make sure you butter up the dough and then put your apricot jam. Again, make sure you're leaving about a quarter to half an inch away from the edge of the pastry so you'll be able to roll. And we have predominantly chocolate. That's a good one. I'm a big fan of chocolate rugelach. So getting back to your apricot jam, yeah, you would just layer down any jam or any flavor you want to do. Make sure that you just leave a part of the dough so you can roll, but put it down in the pastry. Again, if you have a pizza cutter, that's a much easier way and it's not so messy. And then the first one is the most difficult to roll because you've got no sides to work with. You've got to just go inwards. After that, you have already a side to work with from the pie of the rugelach.
Sounds good to me.
I hope you're going to make them and enjoy them. And we look forward to, as we got with you guys in the bagels, if you make them, please hit us up on Instagram at Oahu Kosher or on Facebook at Oahu Kosher. Really appreciate this. And as Rabbi Zalman says, we're going to be for the next month and a half traveling, different places, cooking kosher. Hawaii is a bit shut down at the moment. So we're looking for some business elsewhere until we can get back on our feet over here. Please God, very, very soon.
Thank you, Yudi, for a wonderful and great presentation. It's always great to share workshops together and looking forward to the next one. Anyone that has an idea of what workshop you'd like to do, we have a couple that we were talking about. You can share it with me after the presentation on email, or you can text me, and we will see what we can get done. Shalom, everyone. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And enjoy your rugelach.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.